Welcome to Wednesday. My work week is over, kind of. I still have some charting to catch up on later, but I made my first hot toddy of the season last night and it was really good. The leaves are changing really rapidly up here. I hope fall is treating you well wherever you are. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. Harry and Meghan hate channels continue to be the bulk of non-historical royal content on YouTube, and your engagement helps my channel and other channels like mine grow. Today's video is about royal travel. While the way royals choose to get around doesn't exactly seem like the hottest topic, trust me, there's some dirt here. Before the use of private planes was used exclusively to bash the Sussexes, despite others in the family doing the same thing, often in greater numbers, royal travel has been a topic of discussion and disagreement basically since the British press started being allowed to have disagreements with the royal family. This is obviously for a plethora of reasons, some of which we'll be getting into, but the TLDR of this video is that private travel, often funded by the British taxpayer, is a very expensive way to get around. There are often less expensive means of travel, which of course would be more inconvenient to the royal. This of course creates controversy, again especially when the taxpayer is footing the bill. Controversy over royal travel goes back decades. Actually centuries, with lords and ladies of times past complaining about how expensive hosting royals and royal progresses were. The most recent history usually surrounds use of either the royal train or royal yacht. The royal train goes back to Queen Victoria, but has obviously gone through many changes since the early 20th century. Royalist authors will actually go to great pains to try and convince you that the current 9-car royal train is quite quaint, with its, stay with me here, Queen's Lounge, bedroom and bathroom, the late Duke of Edinburgh's lounge, bedroom and bathroom, the Prince of Wales sleeping car, the Prince of Wales saloon, the household sleeping car, the dining car with kitchen, the household coachette, diesel and brake van. As you can see, very modest. Very, very modest. No one should pay any attention to this train. It's often been called the Queen's preferred method of travel, and trips on the train are usually reserved for senior members of the family. So, of course... Can you guys hear my dog groaning in the bathroom? Oh my god, what is wrong? Okay, I checked on her. She's fine. So, of course, when Meghan traveled with the Queen just a few months after her wedding to Prince Harry, it pissed a whole bunch of people off. Now, there are some pros to the train. It's considered very secure, there is little disruption to other travelers, and it makes overnight trips easier, and some would argue more cost efficient since royals can stay on the train. Now, of course, there are drawbacks. According to one estimate, the train costs about £130 per mile to operate, compared to about £1.50 per mile on any time rail. Detractors argue that comparison didn't even accurately account for all the costs, such as security. The most recent train debacle concerns, maybe unsurprisingly, Will and Kate with their 2020 tour of the UK lambasted over cost, £48,000, even receiving open criticism from the heads of Scotland and Wales for undermining COVID travel advisories. You most likely know this ill-timed train tour as the Plague Express. Now, the Royal Yacht was decommissioned in 1997, but it racked up plenty of controversy in its time. Like the train, royalists would really like you to believe that the Royal Yacht was quite quaint. The architect saying the overall idea was to give the impression of a country house at sea. As the Express put it, definitely not palatial. Somebody should really save these people from themselves. Anyway, basically, in the late 90s, the yacht would have required millions to restore, and Tony Blair's government said no. This came after a good deal of controversy, including the fact that the yacht was used for 31 days in 1991 at a cost of £18 million. At its original commission in 1953, it was supposed to serve as both a floating palace and as a hospital ship. Notably, the Royal Yacht never carried wounded troops. The main pro of the yacht was that, like the royal train, royals could both travel and stay on the boat. This would supposedly cut costs, although several articles are quick to point out that toward the end of its life, royals would use air travel to meet the yacht, negating one of its biggest positives. Anyway, at the decommissioning ceremony, the Queen cried in public for the first time. Imagine a good bulk of your job being interacting with people who had just had some tragedy befall them, and the first time you cry is when the government refuses to pay for your boat. I'll just leave you to ponder that one. After Philip's death, there has been a persistent rumor that the government has plans to commission a second yacht at a cost of $200 million, an idea even the tone-deaf royal family is supposedly totally against. Now this brings us into more present day, royal air travel. Now, there are many different ways royals get around by air. For longer flights, often government planes are chartered. There's a specific squad known as the Queen's Flight, but it's not ultimately super clear to me when or how that's used. It's also important to note that when the royals go to Commonwealth countries, the country that they're visiting actually pays for these flights, which tend to be very expensive. The Queen mostly gets a pass from criticism about her air travel, mostly because she's massively cut down on international travel over the past 20 years, with her last formal visit abroad occurring in 2015. Also, as the nation's grandma and her family's titanium criticism shield, there is just not much the Queen is criticized for anymore. The number one culprit when it comes to royal private plane travel is Prince Charles. Chuck loves to charter flights. His 2009 tour of South America racked up over 600,000 pounds in private air travel. Hilarious considering the tour was related to his climate change agenda. The year before, he had actually spent another 600,000 pounds while touring Japan and Indonesia. Perhaps the most egregious are the short flights where other methods of transport are/were easily available. Chuck and Cam cost the taxpayer 30 grand when they jetted off to Aberdeen. Charles is by no means the only culprit. Will and Kate just flew on a private jet last week for an engagement that lasted less than 4 hours. But I digress. Interest in the use of private planes by the royal family has waxed and waned over the years, but their cost has remained one of the biggest sources of criticism the family receives, especially by UK outlets. An emerging source of criticism is the use of royal helicopter, a relatively novel way of royal travel. Pre-Meghan Markle, the Cambridges were often in hot water for their, my opinion, ridiculous amount of helicopter travel. This, of course, would disappear once the press had their new punching bag, but the heavy use of their £8 million helicopter, including the renovation of their KP home to include hedges, which shield said helicopter use from the public, is, again my opinion, worth criticism. Unlike plane travel, the majority of these helicopter trips could easily be accomplished by car, of course making the trips longer. But for the couple with the lowest engagement numbers, is spending an extra hour in the car really too much? As sharp-eyed squatties have pointed out, the royal family actually spent more on helicopter flights in 2020 than they did during previous years. Again, due to the pandemic, this means that there were a ton of local trips made by helicopter, with very few royal engagements. So the question becomes, where the heck were they going? Even on royal tours, Will and Kate prefer helicopter. Again, pre-Meghan, even Rhoda would highlight this, with M. Andrews tweeting that a single day on their tour of Pakistan included 4 different helicopter journeys. Now, of course, most of you will be familiar with royal transport because private planes were used endlessly in the press to bash Harry and Meghan. Is it true that Harry and Meghan use private means of travel? Yes. Ironically, considerably less than other senior members of the royal family. Now, it's no secret to any of us that the British press slams Harry and Meghan for doing the same things other family members are happy to do in greater numbers. But it's flagrantly hilarious to attack Harry and Meghan when Charles and Camilla are racking up close to 90% private travel, with Will and Kate not exactly lagging far behind. I would also like to point out that this includes only jet travel, not helicopter. For some reason, the family is allowed to just group flights under 15K together in one lump disclosure, so we don't know who is taking what, despite the fact that they are publicly paid for. Must be nice to be royalty. I'd also like to point out that much of what Harry and Meghan were attacked for, using private planes provided by friends or privately funded, the royals do as well. Will and Kate famously use the Duke of Westminster's plane all the time for family vacations. I didn't attack them for that, because honestly, it doesn't really matter. They're privately funded. The UK press continues to attack Harry and Meghan for their choices of travel, despite the fact that the UK taxpayer no longer pays for any of it. Unlike the royals they do pay for, who are apparently allowed to helicopter back and forth between residences with no criticism and relatively little oversight, and take private jets both publicly and privately with only a whisper of question. Of course, we can't end this video without talking about Flybe. Flibby, the budget airline. Right as Harry and Meghan were taking some of the worst press hits, the Cambridges decided to get papped boarding a budget flight. What a coincidence. Again, Will and Kate are known for taking friends' private jets on family vacations, and just totally randomly decide to fly budget and get photographed, with their nanny in tow. But again, I digress. Of course they received their praise from the UK press, except as it turns out, an empty jet was flown to get them, meaning that any climate benefit from taking this flight was completely neutralized. The airline and the Cambridge camp, of course, pointed the fingers at each other, but I think the Flybe stunt is an important milestone on Harry and Meghan's path to leaving the working royal family. Even if, and I don't think this is true, Will and Kate didn't know about the empty plane, they still chose to do a pap stunt right as the press was on the attack against other family members. Notably, they have been on family trips since, and they haven't been papped. This was purposeful. Thank you for continuing to watch my silly royal videos. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much for everyone on Twitter who helped me out with these screenshots. I tried to tag everyone on the posts themselves. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll see you when I see ya.